About 14,000 years ago, somewhere on a cold European plain, a person sat by firelight and pressed a sharp point into a sliver of mammoth ivory. Then another, for an hour, just to make a single bead. They would make thousands. We tend to imagine prehistoric life as bare survival, but here is someone spending precious time making themselves beautiful. The question is who they were trying to be beautiful for. Attraction is older than our species. It is older than language, older than fire. But what changed, sometime in the deep human past, was that attraction stopped being only a feeling and started becoming a performance. And the evidence is buried in the ground. Consider Sungir, a hunter-gatherer site near Vladimir in Russia, dated to roughly 30,000 years ago. There, archaeologists uncovered the grave of a man in his late 30s or 40s, his body covered in around 3,000 beads of mammoth ivory. Each bead, researchers estimate, took about an hour to carve. That is thousands of hours of labor stitched onto clothing. A staggering investment for objects that did nothing to feed anyone or keep anyone warm. What ornaments like these did was communicate. A pendant of Arctic fox teeth, a bracelet of polished ivory, a body painted with red ochre. These were signals. They said something about who you were, where you came from, what group you belonged to, what you could do. Some of the Sungir ornaments show wear marks from being worn daily, over years. People did not just make these things, they lived inside them, they presented themselves. And presentation matters, because attraction among humans was never random. We know this because of inbreeding, or rather the lack of it. When scientists sequenced the genomes of individuals from Sungir, they expected to find close relatives buried together. Instead, the people in those graves were barely related at all. The signal was clear. These foragers were deliberately seeking partners from beyond their immediate family, connected to a wider network of neighboring bands from which mates were chosen. That is a profound finding. It means our distant ancestors understood, at least in practice, the danger of pairing with kin and avoided it surprisingly early in our story. And avoiding it required a system. You cannot casually wander off and find a stranger on an empty Ice Age landscape. There had to be gatherings, introductions, recognition, and the researchers suggest exactly that. The symbolism and effort invested in those ornaments hints that early humans developed rules, ceremonies, perhaps rituals, to accompany the exchange of partners between groups. Distinctive styles of jewelry may have worked as a kind of badge, marking who belonged to which band, telling you, at a glance, who you might court and who you should not. So picture it now, not as biology, but as a social event. A meeting of bands at a seasonal camp. People arriving in their finest, beads catching the light, faces marked with ochre. Glances across a fire, calculations being made about status, skill, kinship, belonging. This is inference, not certainty. We cannot watch it happen. But the pieces all point the same direction. Attraction had become courtship, and courtship had become culture, and it was never one-sided. Mate preference runs deep enough that we can trace it even between different kinds of humans. Recent genetic studies of Neanderthal and modern human ancestry suggest these pairings were not random encounters but shaped by preference, that when our species and theirs met, choices were being made about who was desirable. Attraction, it seems, has always involved selection. Someone was always being chosen. Someone was always hoping to be. Which brings us back to that person by the fire, pressing a point into ivory, making bead after bead after bead. We will never know their name or whether the one they hope to attract ever noticed. But the impulse behind those thousands of hours is not strange to us at all. It is the same impulse behind every careful outfit, every nervous glance, every effort to be seen and wanted. Ancient humans handled attraction the way we still do. They dressed for it, they traveled for it, they built rituals around it and rules and meaning. 30,000 years ago, someone sat in the cold and made themselves beautiful and hoped it would be enough. They are not our distant primitive ancestors in that moment. They are simply us, a little earlier, doing something we have never stopped doing.